Well, I'm Aaron Heizer. I've been doing leathercraft for about 16 years now. I I got started back when I was in the Army in approximately 2001. I was stationed in Hawaii. And there just wasn't a lot of stuff to do that I could afford to do, really, and so I started doing it there, and it just kept evolving as I made my years through the service. And then when I retired, I went the professional route and tried to maintain a business of leathercraft, and then later selling leathercraft supplies. Or the reason that I really think that a lot of veterans could easily find leathercraft something that they would like to get into. In 2005, I was deployed to Baghdad, and I took a bunch of tools with me. And I had a few friends there that they were just kind of looking for something in their downtime in between missions, or if they're, if they actually had a day off or something over there. And I found that teaching them, a little bit about what I did and just playing around with that stuff in our rooms it really took our minds off things and really helped. And even since I've retired from the service and continued on with it and everything, I've not met a veteran that does leatherwork yet that doesn't tell me how good it is for them and how much it helps them to keep their mind off of things and to keep them busy, and to really calm them down as a person, and that it just really helps for PTSD type issues and things like that. So I'm a big advocate for veterans getting into something like leathercraft, some sort of a hobby that they can do and kind of help their mind stay at ease. So my last couple of years in the Army, when I actually did bring the Heizer's custom leather portion of my business to the public and start actually advertising that I make things, I just fell into holster making. I'm a gun person. All of my friends are gun people, so of course, just about every leather worker I know that's starting out, that's one of the first things that their friends are always asking them for is, oh, can you make me a holster for this, and I made a lot of holsters. I made enough holsters that when I did retire from the Army and opened up a shop, a lot of folks came in asking for holsters, and I loved it when somebody would come in and say, hey, do you make wallets? Oh my gosh, yes, I make wallets. Please let me make you a wallet or a notebook or anything but a holster. And holsters definitely got my name out there as far as a customer base for my leathercraft and things like that. But again, they were, it's one of those, I've tooled quite a few of them, and I just love that, now I'm getting a little bit more basis out there that, maybe I'm an all-around leathercrafter that also makes holsters. I actually purchased Maker's Leather Supply from Chris Andre. He was selling primarily holster making materials, holster pattern packs, and the blue guns, the gun molds for molding holsters, and a little bit of hardware for holster making, but everything was geared towards holster making. At the time, that's pretty much what I was known for in the area I lived in, was holster making, so it just seemed like it was a good fit. It wasn't very long, though, that I got a little bit bored just doing blue guns and pattern packs, and I thought, man, there's a lot more that I could do with this business. It's already, the name's already out there, and people already recognize it, and there is an established customer base that I could easily expand on and offer more products that they would need. So that was all when I was still in Leavenworth, Kansas, right after I'd retired from the Army, and found myself finally moving back home to Central Texas, where I lived and was raised before I joined the Army. And it's really taken off from there. We distribute for several other companies now. We deal sewing machines for the Leather Machine Company. We deal leather for Wickett Craig, leather crafting paints and dyes and things like that for Angelus. We now, our latest thing that we've gotten into is we're selling Ron's tools. So it's expanding as much as I can make it expand, but I'm also still trying to keep it just a two-man operation between me and Janie Sue. So when I first started leathercraft, I lived in Hawaii. The year was about 2001. There wasn't YouTube. If there was, I didn't know about it. There wasn't Facebook. There wasn't any way for you to reach out on the internet and just learn this. You could buy a book. You might be able to buy a video. But that was about it. And that was the biggest thing. And even back then, a lot of the old hands, if you found an old saddle maker or something and kind of asked them about it, a lot of them would not teach you anything, because they felt that, you know, either there were several mindsets. One was, well, I learned it myself, so you can learn it yourself. Or another mindset was, well, I don't want to show you my secrets because now you're my competition. Things like that. One of the things that I would wish that I had known back then is how far this would actually take my life and where I would go with it. And I would have worked a lot harder at practicing and teaching myself more of what I did, and, you know, spent more time at the tooling bench, because I had no idea back then, of course, that, I mean, that's what I would be doing for a living now, and that's what I would, you know, leather is the most common spoken word in my household. I mean, every conversation probably turns into something about leather, whether it's about the business or about what I did today or whatever. It all comes down to it, and it's become really important. So yeah, I would have practiced a lot more, and I would hopefully be better than I am now, you know, with the more experience under my belt. But other than that, I just really, I like where it's taken me, and I kind of like the path that it took to get there. I love the mixture of how much I did have to teach myself versus the help I got later on, learning some of the finer points and things like that. I do like that, even though it caused me to struggle and probably waste a lot of money in the beginning years, I was able to gain a lot more experience teaching myself, because now I know how to do things that some people still rely on somebody else for. I see it all the time on Facebook. People are asking for patterns like, hey, does anybody have a pattern for a padfolio? You know, it's 2 rectangles sewn together with a binding. It's not that difficult. You just measure it out. But if they don't have that experience, then it's just not something that they think that they can figure out on their own. So some of the people that have influenced me throughout the years, when I first started doing leathercraft, I wandered into the Heizer store in Fort Worth one day when I happened to be back home on leave, and I met George Hurst, and thought, one heck, what a guy he is, you know. I mean, George is just awesome. And back then his store was hosting Bill Gomer's saddle making class. It was a 2-week class that was, I think, $1,400. And sad thing was, being a young soldier in the Army, I didn't have $1,400 or 2 weeks, so there wasn't anything I could do about it but dream. But anyway, I followed both of them and kind of where they were going with their businesses and what they were doing for a long time. And once I got into Maker's Leather Supply and started going to trade shows and things like that, I eventually met Jim Linnell, and finally got the opportunity to, once I moved back to Texas, to spend some time in his shop. And I've probably learned more from Jim in just the 2 years that I've hung around him a lot more than I ever was able to teach myself in the previous 14 or so years that I was doing this. But those would definitely be the top 3 influences that I've had in this. So, one of the most unique, proudest moments of my life, I was working late in my shop in Leavenworth, Kansas. Once again, that's where I opened my shop right after I retired out of the Army. And I'd already spoken about Bill Gomer being a huge influence in my life, or in my leather work and everything. And me and my buddy Gator were sitting there finishing up the day's work or whatever, you know. I'm sure there were a couple of beers on the table, and we were just talking and having a good old time. And the door opens, and here walks this 6'2" old fella. Can I help you, sir? And he said, well, I hope I'm in the right place. My name's Bill Gomer. Yes, you are. You know, and that started a long-lasting friendship between me and Bill. And it was one of my proudest moments. You know, I tried to explain to one of my Army buddies, you know, because he just didn't understand why that was an important thing. And I said, well, pretend you're a high school pitcher on baseball, you know, and Nolan Ryan came to your dugout and wanted to say hi to you, you know. I was like, it made my day. So that was definitely my proudest day of doing leatherwork right there. As far as the teaching aspect of it all goes, I really owe a lot of that to Jim Linnell. He he and I were talking one day, and he had said something about really he would love it if I came and gave a holster class at Elktracks Studios, and I'd never even considered teaching anything. I mean, I'd always wanted to, I guess, but I just never thought that first off maybe that I didn't have the skills, and then, you know, didn't feel that I had the customer base that, okay, you know, everybody's like, oh, who's Aaron Heizer? Why would I watch him teach something, you know? And but for Jim to have the trust in me, to want to ask me to come up and do that at his studio, I was very, very honored. And we had a heck of a turnout. The very first class had 17 people in it when we had originally said we only wanted 15 because that's a big room. But it's taught me that what I really love about Leathercraft is I love teaching it. I love spreading it. You know, I'd taught lots of people one-on-one. Basically, by saying that, I mean I'd showed a lot of buddies how to do it, you know, and things like that. But I really enjoy teaching, and we've been teaching classes at our shop. We've done classes now at the Sheridan Leather Show, and we're going to continue doing that at Prescott again this year and Sheridan again, as long as we can find a subject matter that, you know, people want to learn. You know, there's plenty of folks out there teaching Sheridan style tooling. There's plenty of people out there teaching this and that, and you know, you've got to find your niche in it, and then not wear that niche out. You know, I mean, you can only give the same class so many years in a row before everybody that comes there's, you know. So we got to figure out what we want to teach and make sure it's something that, you know, people need to learn. The Ask Away Monday videos, we started doing it really as a way just to help some of the beginners with some of the problems they're having. We don't go into depth on anything. We don't teach a huge class or anything like that, but we just, on Monday nights at 7 p.m., we go to Facebook Live and Instagram Live. We have two phones sitting on tripods sitting in front of me, you know, and Janie's sitting there on a computer, and she's watching and reading and making sure everything's okay behind the camera. But people can watch whatever we're doing, whatever the topic is that week, and they can type in their questions, and we try to answer them. We try to demonstrate them, whatever we can do to best explain whatever their question is. And of course, you know, you get some of the folks that are way better leather workers than me on there, that they just came on there to, you know, give me a little bit of a hard time. But we've had a lot of success with it. It's really, I hear a lot of people telling me how much they really enjoy the videos and how much they enjoy the simple tasks that we've taught over them and stuff. We just wanted people to have a way to be able to see some of those things, because there's people, I see them all the time on Facebook and Instagram, that are asking some of the questions that can easily be answered. And now we have a collection of those videos on our Facebook page that we can just tell them, hey, you can go to that one and take a look at that. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely worth working late on Monday nights to do the videos. And I try really hard to keep in mind that some of the newer leather crafters, you know, some simple task that I take for granted because I've known how to do it for a long time, maybe they don't know how to do it. And another thing that we try to do on the videos is just that I'm a big advocate for, you know, what works for me may not work for you. You may get better results from a different way of doing something. So, like on our edge burnishing video, I showed every way of edge burnishing that I could think of, or that I had the materials to do inside the shop, just because, hey, I have my preference, but, you know, I would like to help other people find theirs as well. And so that's kind of how the videos came about. And I mean, we started out with like 10 people watching, and the other day we turned off our camera and it said 436 people had tuned in that night, so it makes me pretty happy. As far as what I would have to say to, you know, generations of leather workers, anybody getting into leathercraft, people that have been doing it for a while and maybe they're stuck on a plateau or something like that. Somewhere around 2005, I talked about being deployed to Iraq, and even though I was enjoying myself there and doing a little bit of leather work while I was there and everything, I was at a point that I had taught myself what I could, and I'd never sat down with anybody else that did leather work. I'd never sat down with a professional. I'd never taken a class. I'd never anything like that. And I felt like my work was just stuck. I wasn't improving. I wasn't able to get the desired effect that I wanted to in some of my tooling and things like that. I wasn't able to get some of the refinement in there that I really wanted, and I couldn't figure out how. Because again, I didn't have a Facebook account. There wasn't a YouTube video on it. You know, I didn't. And I ended up at the Tandy Museum in the old warehouse, which back then it wasn't anything like what it is now. It's much better now. But there was a piece of art there, and I later learned that it was called the Breaking Out Eagle. And I saw this piece of art, and I mean, it's an eagle's face coming out and clawing its way out of a piece of leather. And it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen in my life. And I thought, you know what, there is more for me to learn here. There's a lot more for me to learn. I mean, my basic tooling trying to make a cow look like a cow, you know, there's way more to it. And it motivated me that I've got to figure this out. You know, whatever it takes, there's way more to this craft and way more to this industry and way more to this art than what I've done. And so that's really it. Is, you know, when you feel like you're stuck, you've got to find something far beyond your means that motivates you to get beyond that. I see it a lot on the Facebook groups and stuff that people are saying the same thing. They're like, man, I'm just doing custom orders and I'm getting bored and I don't even want to sit at my tooling bench. What do I do? You know, and I tell them, make something for yourself. Make something you've never made before. Make something you've always wanted to make, but you're just so swamped with custom orders you don't have time to do it. I said, because right now you're 2 months behind. If you take a week and make something amazing that motivates you, you'll stay just 2 months behind. But if you don't do that, you may not even go back to your tooling bench for 2 more weeks. And it's something I've always done. You know, every time I start to think, oh, I'm just swamped with doing the same thing over and over, making holsters over and over, you know, and so I just stop and make something I've always wanted to make, and it gets me right back on track. I'm motivated again for another couple of months. So you've got to find ways to keep at it if it's something you want to keep doing.